On this video, I am doing or endeavoring to do a grammatical analysis, pretty much word by word, of lines 12 through 18 of Book 1 of the Aeneid. I am not a Latin scholar. I never really have had Latin officially. My main degrees, my Doctorate of Theology is in New Testament Greek, and my PhD in Hebrew and ancient Near Eastern languages. But in retirement, I've been just sort of thinking I'll read a little bit along and teach myself as I go along. Again, I'm not coming forth as any kind of an expert in Latin. I am really trying to teach myself a little bit, mainly since the Aeneid is a classic, and one of the things I'm trying to do is read some of the classical literature. I'm reading a little bit of Homer, and also my main emphasis is in the Hebrew scriptures and the Greek New Testament, as I said. And I'm reading Job, looking at each word grammatically in Hebrew. And also I'm doing Akkadian in Hammurabi's epilogue. So bear with me. I'm learning and trying to develop a little bit of Latin understanding by teaching myself. One of the things that I have found helpful is a book that was published. I picked it up some time ago in a used bookstore, and it was published back in the 1800s, actually 1833, quite a while ago. And it's an interlinear translation by Levy and V.R. Osborne, and it was published back then. And I find it one of the best ways for me to try to pick up some vocabulary as I'm going along and grammar. The other book that has been a help to me is the book by Virgil's Aeneid by Clyde Farr. Dr. Farr also did a wonderful work on the Greek and Homeric Greek, and I've enjoyed that very much. So I'm just sort of working my way through. I'm reading again for the grammar, the interlinear, and also to learn vocabulary. And I'm getting some of the historical background that Farr talks about, as well as the grammar. We looked at verses 1 to 7 some time ago, where we see the theme of the poem, namely the wanderings and wars of Aeneas, who after many struggles laid the foundation for the greatest of future Rome, or for the greatness, I should say, of future Rome, in accordance with the decree of fate. This is in verses 1 to 7. And I'm quoting from Farr on page 15. And I'll be doing that at different points in this short video. So with that in mind, let me just go back and review what I have done. I did the first few lines, and I think I believe I'm up to line 12. So as we go back, it begins, Arma veruqua cano, Troiae qui primus ab oris, Italiam fata profugus Laviniaqua vinet. This is a quote of the Latin, or reading of the Latin. Let me just read the interlinear I sing arms and the man who, profugas fato, driven by fate, primus venet ab oris Troiae, that is, has come from the coast of Troy, Italiam to Italy, que Lavina and the Lavinian Latora, the Lavinian shores. Multum ille jactatus, much he has been tossed both on land and sea, et terras et alto. By the power of the gods, we superum ab memoriam iram save unanis, that is, on account of the lasting wrath of cruel Juno. And he has suffered also many things in war. Passus quoque multa bello, until he might find or build a city, dum conderit urban, that might and bring, and that he might bring basically his gods, that he might bring his gods to Latium, inferit Deus Latio, and from whence is the Latin race. And I'm following the translation in the Interlinear, by the way, which is one that is available online if anyone wants to. It's in the public domain. Unde Latinum genus qua Albani patres, that is, from whence is the Latin race and the Alban fathers, et qua moenia altae Romae, and the walls of lofty Rome. Musa memora mihi causes, O Muse, remind me or relate to me the causes qua numine lyso we, what deity being offended, or quid regina, the queen of the gods, deum dolens impulerit, grieving may have compelled a man eminent for piety, virum insignem pietate, to endure so many calamities. Volvere tot casus, adire tot labores, to undergo so many hardships, and then are so great resentments, tantaine irae coelestibus animis, are so great resentments in heavenly minds. And this begins the book. And by the way, I'm just following quite literally the Interlinear translation and endeavoring to read the Latin in the best way I'm able. I've never been officially trained in reading it. And this is, again, not written in the way that Virgil wrote, but it's more of a way to pick up, for me, the vocabulary and what is going on. So I've already worked through that section, and today I was picking up a little bit beginning in the next line with line 12 and following. So Antiqua urbs fuit. An ancient city has been. Urbs is the nominative singular. It's the subject of the verb here, fuit. An ancient city, fuit. Fuit is the verb It's the perfect third person singular, perfect indicative active, third person singular from sum. So a city, an ancient city. Antiqua is an adjective, ancient. Urbs is city, both in the nominative. Fuit was perfect indicative active, third person singular from sum. An ancient city has been, I would render it, which, and I'm following again the rendition of this interlinear, which Tyrii Colani, which Tyrian husbandmen. Tyrii is a nominative masculine plural, along with colony, which is the colonist or husbandman of Tyrian husbandmen have inhabited. Tenere. Tenere is the perfect indicative active, third person plural from tenere. Tenerant would normally, I would think, be the perfect indicative. However, this seems to be a shorter form of the verb teneo and the infinitive tenere. So, which the Tyrian husbandmen have inhabited, Carthago by name. Carthago, if we were, is Carthage actually. It's a third feminine nominative singular in apposition to orbs. So, which Carthage has, or which the Tyrian husbandmen have inhabited Carthage. And it is in, again, a feminine, third feminine nominative singular in apposition to the Tyrian colony, which Carthage by name, over against contra Italiam qua Ostia Tiberna longe, over against Italy. Contra is the, we could render it in opposite Italy. It's a preposition, over against or opposite Italian, Italy. And here we're taking the accusative case in the ending. Over against Italy, qua Ostia Tiberna longa. And the Ostia is the accusative plural, looking at, and we translated the entrances, and the entrances of the Tiber, Tiberina. Tiberina is the accusative plural, neuter, for the noun Tiber. Over the, and the entrances of the Tiber, longe, far off. Longe is an adverb, a long way off, we could render it, or far off. Dives opum que asperima studis belli. That is, rich in wealth and most hard or harsh in the exercises of war. Dives is a nominative feminine singular, which means rich. It's where in the New Testament we have dives. I'm thinking the rich man. Rich, opum, is a genitive plural of wealth. Uh, and again, it seems to be a shortened form, which of wealth, and que asperima, most hard in the exercises or applications of war. Asperima is a superlative of asper, meaning most harsh or hard. In the studiis belli, studiis is a plural ablative from studium, meaning the study of. That's where we get the idea of study, I believe, or the exercises. And by the way, study should be an exercise. Uh, I'm finding that as a Hebrew teacher and Greek teacher, there needs to be an exercise that's constant in let's say learning the biblical languages, for example. So in the exercises, ablative plural, of belli, of war. Bellum is the noun for war here, and it's a genitive singular, and the e a suffix. Then which, quam unum uno, which one city Juno is said to have revered more than all. That is, Juno fertur caluisse magis omnibus. Quam, we would render here as which, like a relative pronoun, which unum uno, which Juno, that is one, speaking of the city, which one Juno is said, fertur is a third singular present indicative passive from fero, to report. And here it would be a passive of that root, it seems. Fero is reported or said to have revered. Caluisse magis. Caluisse is the perfect infinitive to care for, to revere, from kalo, to revere, magis omnibus. And here we have a comparative adjective, more than. Omnibus is an ablative plural, uh, more than all, from omnis, more than all, terris samo, all the lands. And notice terris again is another ablative plural, all the lands, samo, post habita, samos, being less esteemed. Samo is an ablative. It's an island on the coast of Asia Minor. And post habita is another ablative, singular from feminine. It's a perfect, actually, it's a perfect passive participle in the ablative, it looks like, case with a it's singular and feminine. And it's from post habeo, to esteem. So, which samos being, or samos being less esteemed. And then hic, here have been illuos arma. Here have been the arms of her arms. Hic fuit curus. Here has been her chariot. And here, the word curus is a nominative singular meaning chariot. So here has been her chariot, and the goddess Dea Yam Jam Tum or Jam Tum qua tendet qua flawet, and that is here the goddess now and then is the way the interlinear renders it. Both tendet means to design, so which designs, the goddess designs and cherishes. Tendet qua foet. Foet is the present indicative active third person singular from foeo, to cherish. So the goddess cherishes, and the hope that this, and there's that supply, that this hope esse regnum gentibus, that this to be the metropolis of the nation. Regnum is the accusative singular, and gentibus is your dative plural, meaning the nations. So a metropolis of the nations, si qua, if in any way, if in any way, facta si non, the fates may permit. Facta is the nominative plural subject, and fatum is the word for fate. If the fates, si non is the third plural present indicative active third person plural from sino, to permit. So if the fates would permit. Now, having made an effort to work through that in a word by word way, again, I want to say a word of another book. It's out of print, I believe, but it might be available on Google Books. That has helped me is the Virgil's Aeneid, Book 1, a fully parsed classic by D.S. Elban, A.M., and this was published, let me just see, 1916 is the copyright. And so this has helped me a lot. I may try to get another book that would parse the forms and help me work through it. But I'm going to stop there. I wanted to say a word going to far for just a moment, a word of commentary. And I'm borrowing this from Farr, or I'm quoting from Farr. When he talks about the city and the enemies, let me just, this is on page 16. He talks about the Roman legends trace the origin of the Latin race, of the kingdom of Alba Longa, the forerunner of Rome, and the founding of Rome, back to the coming of the Trojans under Aeneas. And this is quoted on page 16. And so in Roman times, many of the noble senatorial families took much pride in tracing their ancestry back to Troy. And so this is the first part of the Aeneid. And also, as he addresses the muses, it was customary in epic poets to invoke the name of the muse for inspiration, and to assign to some such divine source the gift of being able to compose these poems. And this again is on page 16 of FAR. Also, another some notes that might be of help, it's helping me anyway, would be the ancient city of Tyre uh, that's mentioned here in line 12 was a city of Phoenicia, whence Carthage was said to have been settled. So the Phoenicians were the great invaders of their time, and Carthage, on the northern shore of Africa, midway on the Mediterranean, occupied a strategic position for controlling the commerce of these regions. And that is on page, I'm quoting page 17 of FAR. And one other statement that FAR makes is on line 16. According, Juno greatly loved, according to the myth, Samos, an island off of the western coast of Asia Minor. According to the myth, the goddess had been reared in Samos and married Jupiter there, and one of her temples, one of the most famous in the world, was situated there. And so we get the mention of Samos at that point, a little bit about the background as I'm learning it from FAR. He also makes an interesting reference here of the hic hic hoc, repeated for emphasis on line 16 and 17. So I think I'm just going to stop there. I'm working through this when I have time to learn a little bit about Latin that I never learned. And many high school students will be far ahead of me in Latin. And I'm retired. I'm a retired seminary professor where I taught, like I said, Hebrew for many years, and that's where I did my PhD work in biblical Hebrew. So I'm doing this for mental exercise and to try to learn something I never learned. And I thank you, if anyone's listening, for going through this and working. Maybe you would like to learn Latin as I have the time to work through it. Maybe you would enjoy going through it as well. Thank you so much.